My name is Claire Mitchell, and growing up in Ohio, my dad had one favorite sentence he'd throw at me every chance he got. You're the wrong daughter. I used to think it was just one of those messed up dad jokes. But every birthday, every graduation, and every family barbecue, he'd say it again with that smug little grin while my younger sister Emma soaked up all the attention like she owned the place. Come on, buddy. Imagine hearing that for 28 years. When Grandma Evelyn passed away, everyone expected Emma to inherit everything because, according to Dad, she was the only one who truly deserved it. I wasn't even invited when they cleaned out Grandma's house. Seriously, they changed the locks before I could even stop by. A week later, Dad called out of nowhere and said, "Don't bother asking about your grandmother's things because there's nothing left for you." I laughed and replied, "Funny, I wasn't going to ask, but something felt way off, because Grandma wasn't the kind of woman who forgot people. She always told me, the truth always finds its own way home." 3 days later, I stopped by the county office to grab copies of an old property tax record while getting ready to buy my first home. While I waited, the clerk looked at my name and asked, "Hey, didn't you already claim your storage unit?" I froze and asked, "My what?" She turned the screen toward me showing storage unit 417. Paid in full for 15 years. Owner Claire Mitchell. Signature authorization dated 6 months before Grandma passed away. No way. I'd never heard about it. The address led me to an old industrial district about 40 minutes away. When I arrived, the manager checked my ID, smiled, handed me the key, and simply said, "You finally made it." Inside wasn't old furniture or random junk. There were dozens of sealed boxes filled with photo albums, legal folders, handwritten journals, and one small metal safe sitting on a folding chair. Guess what? It wasn't even locked. Inside was a yellow envelope with my name written in Grandma's handwriting that read, "Claire, if you're reading this, someone tried very hard to keep you away from the truth." My hands started shaking. The first folder contained copies of every loan Grandma had secretly paid for my parents over 20 years, including mortgage payments, credit card debt, medical bills, everything totaling more than $800,000. Then I found another folder filled with receipts proving Dad had secretly sold Grandma's antiques for years. Even worse, he forged her signature on several sales, buddy. I couldn't believe what I was looking at, but the biggest shock came from one tiny receipt sitting at the bottom of the safe. It was a canceled storage auction notice because Grandma had prepaid the unit forever. On the back she had written, "Your father thought this place was empty because I wanted him to think that." I kept digging until I found her final journal explaining everything. Years earlier, Dad begged Grandma for his inheritance early. She refused. After that, he spent decades convincing everyone I wasn't really part of the family, because I reminded Grandma of her late husband, the one man who never tolerated lies. Grandma saw exactly what he was doing. Instead of confronting him, she quietly documented every fake signature, every stolen dollar, every lie, and left it all for me. The following Sunday, my family hosted one of their usual cookouts. Dad stood on the deck telling everyone how selfish I was for disappearing after Grandma's funeral. The second I walked in, he smirked and said, "Look who finally showed up." Emma rolled her eyes and muttered, "Ain't nobody got time for another one of Claire's dramas." I smiled and answered, "You might want to save that energy." Then I placed the storage box right on the picnic table. Dad's smile vanished. "You opened that?" he asked. "I sure did," I replied. Then one by one I laid out the forged documents, the receipts, the journals, and the antique sales records. Nobody said a single word. I placed Grandma's handwritten letter in front of my aunt. She read it out loud, and by the time she finished, my uncle looked straight at Dad and asked, "You stole from your own mother?" Dad laughed nervously and muttered, "You gotta be kidding me." But then I handed everyone the notarized copies Grandma had hidden inside the safe. There wasn't anything left to deny. Emma quietly stepped away from Dad like she didn't even know him. 2 months later, the court ordered a full financial investigation. Most of Grandma's stolen assets were recovered. Dad lost nearly everything trying to defend himself. And as for me, I finally bought the little house Grandma always dreamed I'd own. The only thing hanging in my living room is that tiny storage receipt inside a simple wooden frame, because sometimes the smallest piece of paper carries the biggest truth. And every time I walk past it, I remember exactly what Grandma meant when she said, "The truth always finds its way home."